This build is a bit unusual, simply because it may kill you very easily. I am using Runes of the Traveler in the Berserker armor, Celestial Weapons, first is of Energy, second is of Perception. I am using Berserker Trinkets, with a single Ascended one, but if I had Berserker I would probably go here as well. Traits. I will try to explain why those traits are like they are. Crucial ones are Ravaging Manipulation for long range blink, Master of Manipulation for more often blink. Mobility is your only defense and you need it a lot. Next, Bountiful Interruption. This is your damaging trait and one of the most important ones. Deceptive Evasion works as your healing power and distortion fodder. Yes, healing power simply because you're using Ether Feast, so the more illusions the better. Mender's Purity is the trait which removes conditions from you. And Warden's Feedback is the trait which can reflect projectiles. This is very nice, simply because you will use Curtain in a bit different ways, not to accelerate yourself. Now, I'm using Duelist Discipline, simply because this is a lockdown build. Combination of Signet of Domination and Magic Bullet allows you to stun lock enemy for 5 seconds. You could technically drop those two, but I've experimented. If I took Halting Strike here, the damage was reduced very much, simply because crit damage is quite high here, 104%, which gives us 154% damage more. Now, the more power, the stronger critical damage becomes, and the damage comes from Bountiful Interruption. So this trait is crucial, this trait is crucial, this trait is crucial. And I like this one as well. Warden's Feedback. For me, I'm not going to drop it. You have those two you can manipulate. If you want to go less into lockdown, more into phantasm damage, you can drop those two and take something from Inspiration line, or those two, and get Vulnerability when you interrupt, which is quite a good trait in this thing. Food I am using in this particular build is Dodging Food and Hardened Trappening Stone to get more power. You may not have a lot of defenses, but you have a lot of offense in this build, and this is how it works. Interrupts give you nice boons, but most important, they give you power because of mites. Every interrupt is 5 mites for you. Those give you a lot of power and magnify with the precision you have and critical damage, which makes you deal a lot of damage. You may not have a lot of condition damage, some from bleeds from clones, a torment, but those work with mites as well. So the more you interrupt, the more damage overall you deal. You do not need swiftness from the curtain anymore, so you can use it to slow down enemies and to detonate, or as a reflection tool. Fun fact, the most possible damage a Mesmer can deal comes from sword auto attack, so try to use it as much as you can. You have 2 stun breakers in this build. The first one is Blink, which is your most crucial defensive tool. The second one is Swap from Sword 3. Use auto attack to deal damage and Blood Frenzy as a defensive tool only. You don't want to use Blood Frenzy to deal damage, but to soak damage. When you see your enemy is trying to heal, feel free to interrupt him. First of all, he has healing problems then. Additionally, you will get more mites, ergo more damage. Note, in this clip I am in soldier armor. With Berserker it would be easier. I open with a lockdown, first Signet of Domination, then Magic Bullet, 5 seconds of stun. This gives me initiative and forces an enemy to defense. He recovered quickly with Thieves Guild and crowd control, so I had to blink away. I put a curtain, so his body shot, which was meant to immobilize me, immobilized him. To combat a million of enemy boons, a Disenchanter was used. Disenchanter will also rip some conditions from me randomly, and Immobilize is the one condition which kills this build. The build I am using works because I am the pressure and I am not the preferred one. This combats the Thieves and combats the Signet Warriors, because they are able to pressure you indefinitely, so you will make a mistake eventually. In this build it is opposite. I will pressure my enemies and they will have to make a mistake, then I can interrupt or lock down. Stealth is an icing on the cake, but not really needed in this build. Additionally, enemies expect something else than they get. They see Scepter, Duelist and Signet of Domination. It screams condition build. Mind you, this build is worst you can get to a zerg fight. It won't help at all. Let's get one thing straight, you will never kill a good warrior. But if the warrior makes a mistake or two and won't run in time, you will be able to attrition him. The beginning of a fight with a warrior is always the most difficult. Enemy usually has stability and has all those charges and stuns and cripples and immobilizes, and you don't have disenchanter up. I did make several mistakes here, of course. As you can see, the magic bullet used here gives me some breathing room so I can start watching animations and fight him again. Healing is used both as condition removal and as healing, and Blood Frenzy is used defensively, so the warrior can't really pin me. When I fight a warrior, I can't hope for raw DPS him with shatters or something like that in this build. I need to put up 3 duelists or 2 duelists and disenchanter on anything really, and try to attrition him, then Blood Frenzy, then catch him off stability, lockdown, and hope to kill him. As you can see, I may be in berserker armor, but my enemies are in soldier armor. This means they won't deal as much damage to me, and the berserker is not that much of a problem. If I had an armor different than berserker, I would have no pressure on a very high armored enemies. No pressure and no stealth, good game, goodbye. This clip shows a great disadvantage on this build, showing it on 2 thieves which fight me. Now, to win against 2 thieves, I need to force them on defense, not offense. As long as I have only clones and nothing really interesting, I can shatter freely. The curtain is used to buy me some time against them, to regenerate endurance and get some cooldowns. When I switch to Scepter, I immediately use Scepter 2. When I see block, I dodge forward. Although I won't deal damage that way, I won't be caught by enemies. Blink creates me a distance. I have a very mobile Mesmer, and the more space I have, the better it is for me. I got really surprised here by the golem, but fortunately I had curtain, so I could distort, use the curtain and start casting mass invisibility. Now I am at 1200 range with swiftness and with traveler runes, and my enemies are far away, and I am invisible. The weakness of this build is I don't have 1200 range weapon. I've got 900 range weapon and not very reliable. I got downed, but it was my mistake. I should put up a duelist and dodge, try to avoid the other thief. To be completely honest, I could have won that one, but me as a player made a mistake. This is not a solo build, mind you. This build is created to work in parties. The goal is to boon strip targets, to cause as much crowd control as possible, to lock down a particular selected target and destroy him. When a party mate is being focused fire too much, use mass invisibility. The bountiful interruption trait is the crucial here, because the more enemies you are able to interrupt, the more interrupts you generate, the more mites you generate, and the more your overall damage becomes. When you get focused fire too much, and even as a berserker you can survive a bit here, blink in such a way that enemies will have to go through your comrades to get you. As in, you need to be constantly aware of where the front is. Even if enemies see you and know where you are located, they won't be able to follow you. If you learn to understand the fight and if you learn to understand positioning, this build will work for you very well. But until you do, you will die a lot simply because most Mesmer active defenses like stealth you simply don't have. And you don't have stats which will protect you. But this build will teach you how to play a Mesmer better. This amazing fight is an example of how to survive in difficult circumstances. We are trying to stop the veil capping, and as I am the fastest, I am in forward. Placing a curtain like that means enemies will expect me to go that way, so I blink the other way and detonate the curtain to pull them. Defensive Blood Frenzy, and as my allies moved into the camp, I can use mass invisibility and get to them behind the lines. While I am trying to be at least remotely useful, a Phantasmal Berserker hits me quite hard. For survival, I am able to combo Blood Frenzy, dodge, and blink away to get distance, turn around and assess the situation. I'm pulling one enemy to allow Brim to stomp easily, but an opportunity to kill another warrior comes. I didn't notice he's using the new heal. Got focused by a Confusion Mesmer, but fortunately those are the least dangerous for me. The small amount of damage his Scepter deals lets me move away, heal, to drop Confusion and return to the fight. Casting Disenchanter whenever I can. If he boon strips a random target, it doesn't matter, because he strips quite often. As long as he lives, enemies have less boons. Same applies to Temporal Curtain or Magic Bullet, something might get interrupted. As enemies are low on hit points, I can use Mind Rack to deal quite large damage. Notice that in this fight I am not a damager, I am a chaos operator. Now, two major mistakes on my parts here. First, I didn't notice Menace casts Shadow Refuge. I leave the refuge of Shadow Refuge, so it is wasted. Second mistake, after teleporting away, I shouldn't have returned to the fight, I should have waited there. This is what I mean. I, as a player, make mistakes in this build, but the build itself is not weak, it is simply different than usual Mesmer build I am used to. Well, to be honest, with Brimhorn it isn't that easy to get killed because he watches my back all the time. I simply get downed slightly too much so he knows whom to cover. As team is low on hit points, I cast Mass Invisibility to regroup. And afterwards the fight is already won, it is simply execution. Some enemies are moving away from the Veil and others are staying, so this is the end of the fight really. To summarize, this build is a lockdown party build using mobility as the main defense. It has nice utility and acceptable staying power, but the lack of stealth and lack of defensive stats means that before you learn how to play it you will die a lot. Your main defenses are pressure, damage and lockdown, not stealth. If your party selects a single target, you are able to deny any chance of reaction of him. If you are focused in any larger fight, you will probably die. Hope you like it. Good luck!